Okay, thank you again for joining me today. Another look at the EA Monster Expert Advisor that I've developed over the past a year and a half or so. This is another video that is extremely long overdue. I'm going to try to give you an overview of the incredible number of features that are in this Expert Advisor. I'm going to start off, we're just going to look at the inputs today, and I want to make sure that you understand how these inputs work, because this can get really confusing. There's so many things I've added to this over the course of the last year and a half that it could make your head spin. Well, let's just get right into it. This video, I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to try to cover as much as I can in this video. So just stay with me and go over it a little at a time here so you can understand all these features, because some of these features are amazing, and I want to make sure that you understand which ones I like the best. All right, here we go. The main EA settings, of course, when you open up the input section, is right there. You have the magic number, which obviously you can change that number if you have Euro USD. You have multiple instances of Euro USD open. You can change that number on each one of them so that each strategy will be unique to each one of those. Now, obviously, if you're in the United States, it's only going to open another additional. If you have two instances open or three instances open, if another strategy opens a trade and you already have a buy trade open on that pair in the United States, it's only going to open another buy. So if it triggers a sell, it won't open because we have that problem here with the regulations over here. But in other countries where they have hedging allowed, I believe it'll open up, buys and sells and all that through having multiple instances open. Okay, I hope you understand that. Obviously, the EA comment is if you get some alerts and things like that. Like I get notifications on my phone, and it should show up in there as well. It will. Okay, the lot size, obviously, you know what that is. I don't have to explain that. Right now, it's set at 0.01 micro lot, But anyway, place orders if under the maximum spread. I have it set at default at 31. You can bump that up to 51 points. I'm starting to use 51 now a lot of my trades, because a lot of the British pound pairs go up over 4 pips a lot of times in the spread, and I'm missing out on a lot of trades because the spread filter is set at 31 points, which is 3 pips. Okay, 3.1 pips. So you can bump that up to 51 if you like. Experiment with it. Use what you feel best, But anyway, maximum price slippage for buy and sell orders. This is default at 1. I'm actually bumping that up higher, especially with these new sniping strategies that I've been talking about lately. I'm bumping that up a bit because I don't want to miss important trades, and so I'm just bumping it up a little bit. Right now, the default is setting to 1, but you can change that, of course. Attempts to resend order if error. This is something that obviously, if there was some kind of error, it couldn't open the trade because of X reason, it will try to open up a trade again and again and again, up to 10 times the default here. You can change that to anything you like. I know I had that. I put that in the EA a long time ago because I noticed that some trades would not open up. If there was an error, and I wanted the trades to open up and force them to open, and that's what I added that in there. And the same thing goes with a close order error. Actually, these two features are extremely important. Let's say, for instance, especially you want to close the trade in profit or loss, because you don't want to lose anymore. It will. If you only have this set to 1, it'll try to close it once, then it won't try closing it anymore, and you're in deep trouble at that time, because it's not going to try to close it any more times. That's why we put it at 10, so that at least it's almost guaranteed that it's going to close the order if there's an error, because usually it's the second or third or the fourth time it'll do its job. But anyway, that was just from experience where I added that one. And then we got the strategies here. We have this feature here, lot size increases after loss back to normal on next trade. I don't recommend using this. it's more of an experimentation thing. It was martingale. I used to have this thing where it was, multiply double every time you lose, and yeah, it does work for a certain amount of time, and then eventually it destroys you because the market is, you're going to lose a trade once in a while, and that's why I'm not really a big fan of martingale unless you're really good with price management, and you can start your martingale up, but this is only like a like a little bit of a martingale. It just increases it one time and then it goes back to normal. So if you lose or you hope that it's going to win um, the next one, and then it would just double the lot size for that next trade, and then hopefully it would break even if you're using the same take profit and stop loss. Experimental. I don't recommend it too much because I don't even use it. But anyway, risk management. This is one of my favorite features that I've added to it. This basically will increase your lot size incrementally per the amount of balance that you have in your account. For example, you have $200 balance. The lot size will up to $200 balance, you'll have a 0.01 lot size. If you have $400 balance, it's going to be a 0.02 lot size, and a $600 balance 0.03, if you understand what I'm saying. $1,000 balance would be 0.05. $2,000 is zero point 0.1, and so on and so on and so on. It works really well with this default setting here if you set this to true. Okay, it's really good. It will compound your profits dramatically over time without you having to adjust the lot size yourself. And I've tried different variations of this with $50. It will destroy. $50 will kill you. It will compound very quickly, and then you'll get that trade where the lot size is so big and you'll lose one and it will just kill your account. But this $200 incremental works quite well. And we have this here, which is something very difficult to understand. It's a trailing balance. Okay, it's basically going to you're going to go input. The default is 30% trailing. So basically, if your balance is your equity balance is $1,000, right? And if that balance goes down to $700, which would be a 30% decrease, it will stop trading. The EA will just stop trading because you don't want to lose any more than that. Now, if it goes up to $2,000, right, and then it'll just keep going up, and when it does is it trails just like a trailing stop loss, but it's a trailing balance. Try to wrap your head around that a little bit. It's a trailing balance. So you run the EA for a while, and it will just keep trailing and trailing and trailing, and then it will just go back 30%. So you'll only lose 30%, give or take, some percentage points, because it's not 100% perfect, but it's around 30%. It's going to trail, then it will go back, and then it will stop trading, so you will not lose any more, and hopefully your balance will be in profit. Then you can go ahead and decide whether you want to continue with that strategy or not. It's obviously something that you would use over long term or short term, depending upon how much trailing. If you set this to 90% trailing, it's going to trail 10%. If you set it to 95%, it's going to trail your balance 5%. You can do that, and just remember that once it goes back 5%, it's going to stop trading. All right, hopefully you understand that. Stop trading when balance is below, default is $100. Obviously, if your balance is below this amount, you will not trade. It will not open trades. Stop trading when free margin is below. This is a great feature. It's one of my favorites because it will stop triggering margin calls. Okay, this will stop triggering margin calls if you put this to something like $200. If you have a small account, put it at like $200. If you're using like Euro USD, you might be able to get away with $100 there, but obviously the British pound pairs, you're going to need more. A higher amount there, $200, $300 in there. And obviously you can bump that up even higher if you have a bigger account. You just bring it up to where you don't want the free margin. You just want a certain amount of free margin in there at all times. Okay, and here's another strategy that I developed. I don't use it much anymore, but it's very effective if you want to target a certain amount of pips in a day, or a certain amount of pips in a day, week, or month. And then you want to also, maybe you don't want to lose as much in those periods. So you got it set at 5,000 basically to disable it because it's unreachable. So if you set that to like 40 pips, for instance, let's say you set this to 40 pips, set this to 40 pips, it will target, it has to close in profit or loss. And if it closes in profit over 40 pips, it will stop trading for the day and then restart the EA again and start trading again. The same thing with the loss. If it closes in loss less than 40 pips in the day, 24-hour period, it will stop trading and trade again the next day. And of course, you can just go ahead and put whatever amount of you want to put in there. But I advise you put it a little bit less, like 5 or 10 pips less than your target because of spread. And if it gets too close, you just want a 5 or 10 pips less. Trust me. Same thing with the weekly. Target a certain amount of pips per week, a certain amount of pips lost per week. With month, it works the same way. You could even back test your strategies and see how this thing works over time. I've done a lot of back testing with this, and it's not. Let's see how it works. But I wouldn't recommend taking that as solid when you look at the back test for these. Just use it discretion, at your discretion. And when you want to just target and not trade that much. It's supposed to help you stop trading too much, if you understand. Okay, here we go. Let's go check out some more here. More features. Just barely scratched the surface of this, if you can see. This one here, setting for MA cross and MA trend. This is the period for a feature that is further down in here. This one here, actually, this is an old feature I had. You might have to private message me to understand how this works. This is a little bit complicated, but it's MA cross and MA trend. You don't have to worry about the MA cross too much because I added new MA crosses, but the MA trend part, you might want to use that once in a while, and if I can find it here, I'm going to eventually run into it, but there's a feature in here that will literally filter out so many candles. Right here it is. MA filter buys above MA and sells below MA, okay? If you put that on, you put this X candles back, this will work with the period that we have up there. It's a little confusing because this setting is not together. It's because earlier I added that feature and it was for two different things. But private message me if you don't understand this. But if you put here 10 candles, it's going to open if 10 candles are going, if the 10th candle is above the previous, or the 11th candle is above the previous 10 candles, and the recent candle is above the moving average period, it'll allow trades. It's a filter, so it's going to allow trades that are buys. And the opposite is true also for sells, where if the 11th candle is below the previous 10 candles, it will allow sells. And of course, if the recent candle is below the moving average line. It's quite complicated. If you don't understand it, private message me and I'll send you a setting file for it, and you can experiment with it. It was another strategy I developed a long time ago. And where are we now? Okay, here we are. We did that. Okay. And now we got Invert Trades is very self-explanatory. You put that to true and everything will invert to the opposite trade. I do use it. Pending orders. This is one of my favorite features. I have some other blog posts that go into describing how to use the pending orders feature. But I'll just get right into this here. Open 2 buy orders and 2 sell orders. It's basically going to order. It's going to place a 2 buy order. Like if you have a buy order triggering the pending, right? It's going to open a buy so many pips above and a buy so many pips below. I never use it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I never use it. If you find a need for it, use it. There's a lot of features in here I don't use. I just experimented with them. I had some experiments that we've done in the past, and I just left them in here so you can have fun experimenting with it. I don't use it, and you may like it. But again, okay, this is the 50 pips. Set the default 50. I don't recommend using that either. Use 10 pips around is usually better, but just experiment here. Open one buy order and one sell order. Obviously, that's going to be opening one buy order, 50 pips, or if I put here 10, which I start using that now, 10. If you open one buy order, one sell order, it's going to open a buy order 10 pips above. It's going to open a sell order 10 pips below. When a sell order is triggered, it opens a buy order 10 pips above, sell order 10 pips below. If you set that to true. Now, if you put invert, it's going to flip them the opposite direction, so the sells will be above and the buys will be below. OCO input, obviously you're going to trigger this. You're going to set this one to true. Obviously, if you if the price hits the pending order, a buy order or a sell order, it will close the other pending order. I use it all the time. Maybe you don't want to use it. Maybe you want to have like leave it open for some reason, so when the price travels all the way back to that point, it'll open. And of course, this is one of my favorite features here. Right now, delete pending orders after X seconds. So even if you did OCO input here was not on, where it wasn't closing the previous, this will close it after this number of seconds. It's set to 1 day, so 86,400 seconds in a 24-hour period. So it's going to close all pending orders in 1 day. Obviously, what I do with this is I set this to 10 seconds. If you want to get really fancy, this is where this thing creates magic. Set this to like 2 seconds. Set it to like 5 or 10. And now we're talking about, if you open up a strategy where you set this to like 10 pips or 5 pips, right? And you have this set to 10. Now we're talking about some price action. It opens up the trade. It's going to have to move in 10 seconds, has to move this distance in 10 seconds to open the trade. Okay, we have the delete pending orders after so many seconds. Like I said, it will force your trade to open only when the price is moving at an extreme rate of speed, depending upon how much distance you put here in these blanks here and the amount of seconds that it's going to travel that speed. I hope you understand this. It's confusing, but like I said, private message me if you have any questions about this. It's very, very powerful. If you use this correctly, it's very powerful because you're only going to open up trades when the market is moving at a very high rate of speed. And of course, you can use your imagination and set this to anything you like. And okay, let's just get right into, we're barely scratching the surface of this. I don't know how long the video is going to be, but we're just getting into the open trade section, okay? And right now, this is the default strategy we have here. Body of the candle is X% greater than the previous X number of candles. With this, open a buy trade if a bull candle, open a sell trade if it's a bear candle, okay? It's very sophisticated. It's going to look at the previous number of candles in this section here. Like this is set to looking at the last 40 candles. If the current candle is 75% greater than all the previous 40 candles, it opens a trade. If it's a bull, a buy. If it's a bear, it's a sell trade. And the candle body must be more than this size. So right now it's set to default 5 pips. Obviously you can make this 20 pips. You can make it, obviously the higher this is, the less trades it's going to open. You know, I've experimented with this so many different ways. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't use this much anymore, but it can be very effective if you set this up right. And also, if you put candle shift at 0, it's going to open immediately while the candle is forming. So if it's 75% greater than the previous 40 candles, while the candle is still being formed, it will open up immediately. If it's set to, I'm sorry, that's 0. If it's set to 1, it will wait until that candle is completely finished, and on the next opening of the next candle, it will open a trade. I hope you understand that. It's very sophisticated. This is the wick of the candle is X% of the body, opens trade. This is dealing with just the current candle or the previous candle. Obviously, if this is set to 1, it's the previous candle. If the previous candle, according to this, is if the low wick is greater than percent of the body, it's going to buy. If the candle wick is greater than a percentage, the high wick is greater than a percentage of the sell, it's going to open up a sell trade. So if it's 100%, if the candle wick is 100% greater, the low wick is 100% greater than the body, it's going to open up a buy trade. You can change that to all kinds of crazy things. This is actually quite amazing if you use your imagination. Just give you an example. Let's say you had a 900% and you put this candle body to one pip. That would mean that it would have to be a 9 pip wick and a 1 pip body or less. So you ever seen those long wicks in a 1 minute chart? It doesn't work that great. I've tested all this stuff, but in your head it works fantastic. You think that you had the holy grail, but it doesn't work the way you would think it would work. But it's fun to play with. Like I said, 1 pip body, 900% would be 9 pips. Set this to 10 and 900. Then you're talking about something that doesn't happen almost never, which would be like a 90 pip wick. That never happens. If it does, it's once every couple of years. But if you understand what I'm saying, just experiment with this. I don't use it much, but this actually can be very, very effective if you use your imagination. Just because I don't use it doesn't mean you can't make a fortune off of these features. I just don't have time to use every single one of these. I'm always changing my mind on what I'm using, but I left all these features in here because I know somebody can make a fortune on it using it. I actually want you to do better than I've ever done with it. Okay, here we go. Open on high, sell on low after a number of candles. Very self-explanatory. If it's going to open on the 5th, like if you set this to 10, it's going to look at the previous 10 candles, and if it's going to open a trade on the highest candle. So if it's got 10 candles in a row and the 5th candle is up high, and then you hit that candle and it's within 10 candles, it's going to open a buy. And the same thing with the sell. It's going to hit the low, it'll open up a sell. Open trades by support and resistance. This is a pivot section. I don't use this. You can use it if you like pivots. I love it. In my head, there's all these things that you see here work perfectly in my brain, but they just don't always work when you backtest them. I mean, they work sometimes, but they don't always work. There is no 100% strategy that I found yet. Some of the newer ones I'm working on now, I'm trying to get there to be 95% or greater, which you will see me talk about with our new sniping strategies with using pending close. Working on that now. But anyway, this feature here, there's so much you can do with this pivot feature. You can open on daily pivots, support resistance for dailies, weekly and SR and monthly open pivots and SRs, and you can open when the candle, when it touches it, when the price touches it. You had set this X bars open, 0 opens immediately, so it'll automatically open a trade if it's crossing up, crossing down, a sell. If it's set this to 1, it'll wait for the candle to close 1. If you set it to 2, it'll wait for 2 candles to close. If you set it to 10, it'll wait for 10 candles to close, and so on. You could do all kinds of variations to experiment with. Have fun with it. And of course, this is going to show you the colors. This will give you the colors of the pivots and the support and resistances. Okay. Here we go. Open buy if X candles higher. Open sell if X candles lower. This is consecutive candles. If you have obviously, if you set this to 1, if you're in a bull candle, it's going to open up automatically. It's going to open up a buy trade. If it's a bear candle, it's going to open up a sell trade. If you have this set to 3 candles, it's going to wait for 3 consecutive bull candles to open a buy, 3 consecutive bear candles to open a sell. Very easy to understand that one. You can set it to 10. Wait for 10 candles to be all in a row bear, all bear or bull to open up buys or sells. Okay. Open trades when speed is moving in X pips in X seconds. This one here, very difficult to understand or easy to understand, depending upon how you look at it. It's easy to me. Open this number of pips in this number of seconds. Set default to 10 pips in 60 seconds. The default doesn't work very well. If you set it to invert, maybe it might work well, but it doesn't work very well, the default settings. If you set this to like 4 pips in 1 second, it does work pretty well. Especially if you put a really large stop loss on there and a 5 pip start trailing, 4 pip trail. 4 pips in 1 second actually does work quite well. As you'll see in some of my future videos, you'll see me talking about how I'm using pending with this, where I even already supplied some setting files for this in a blog post with an image. So you basically have this set to 4 pips per 1 second, and when it opens, then the pending also has it's set to 4 pips above for buys, 4 pips below for sells, and if the price moves, it'll literally shut off in a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds or up to 10 seconds, depending upon which your forward test works the best. That's what I'm doing this week. Actually, is I'm testing that out right now to see how we can try to get 95 to 100% profitable using this strategy right here. Okay, the next one, X pips in X seconds close reverse. Basically, if you're going 4 pips per second and the trade is opened 4 pips per second, if the trade reverses at 4 pips per second or greater, it will close the trade. Does it work? Yeah, it does work during news releases where the market is bouncing around like a maniac and it's jumping up and down. I've seen this thing racking so much profit during crazy news releases. It'll fly up 4 pips a second, it'll fly down and close and profit, up and down, and it'll just keep on closing, profit, 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 and then you're eventually going to get a loss. And then you have to decide, are you going to shut the EA off or not? But during news releases, you might want to play around with that. That could be fun. Do it on a demo account first, I warn you. X pips in X seconds close reverse at a different speed. The same principle, but this is going to be at a different speed than the original speed. Very handy if you want to put it. It's like that says 4 pips per second there. So if it drops down to 2 pips in 1 second in reverse, it will close the trade. You have to experiment a lot with it. X pips in X seconds close trade. This is if it's going in the same direction, and it just basically slows down. If it slows down to 1 pip in 1 second, it'll just start closing the trade. It's good if you were able to have a really good news release, it bursted out, and then the whole idea is that if you roll a ball really fast and the price breaks through something, and as it slows down to a certain point, it's going to just close the trade. I used to think that this was going to be the holy grail, this whole setup here. It's not, because there's so much lag, so much different things that happen in live market conditions, like the spread, the what is it called? Good grief, forget. All right, the spread, the slippage, and all that is so different on broker to broker, and you have your internet lag time and everything else. So you just have to experiment on your own setup. Open trades by price across MA, moving average. This one here. This one actually works with the original. See this one? This actually is the one that works with this feature up here in the beginning. Way up here at the beginning. This one here, settings for MA cross and MA trend. That's what that one is used for. I don't recommend this one. You don't really need to use it. It's just left in here because it was in there, and I want people who first purchase this to have their features being pulled out when I added it a long time ago. So it's still in there. You don't need to use that. I replaced it with these here. Here, where is it? I can't even find my own inputs on here. It's so big. open trades by price cross MA. Yeah, you might not even need to use that, because if you look right below it, this one here, open trades by price cross MA, open buy, open sell. I replaced it with something a little more robust. It has the period and the method and the price all in it, but the buy and the sell have their own. And the reason why I did this was, I'll show you why. Why I have a separate MA setting and separate MA to close, open and open buys and sells. I'm sorry. It is to basically, you could put this at a high, open the buys on the high, open the sells in the low. Very handy, because maybe you want to wait for it to close to cross the high of the moving average to open the buy. Maybe you want to have it make sure that it really crosses the low of the moving average to open a sell. Very excellent feature, especially if you want to maybe set this thing up with no stop losses or take profits and just manually close your trades. This could be something that will be very effective. If you love moving averages, this will do it, where you could use a price crossing the moving average over the high or low. And then I have more and more moving average features that I added to it. This one here is kind of new. It should have been old, but it's something new. It's common among a lot of expert advisors probably. It's a simple moving average cross moving average. And of course, very self-explanatory. Your first one will have, this is very important here. If you open immediately with 0, you'll need to back test this with every tick. If you use the default, which is open one candle, and it will not open a trade until the candle has finished itself. And when the 9 EMA in this example crosses the 50 EMA and the candle has finished itself, then it will open the trade. And if you are closing trades with, as you'll see in our closed trade section, closing trades with an indicator like this, and you're not using any stop loss or take profits, you can literally backtest this thing to be extremely accurate and optimize it using open candles only, okay, in your strategy tester. And I believe in my previous video I've went over that. But anyway, that's that feature. I'm not even 50% through this yet. This one here will open on Bollinger Bands. When it opens, it'll open when the buy crosses the upper band. When the price, this is when the price crosses the upper Bollinger Band, it will open a buy trade. If it crosses the lower band, it'll open a sell trade. And obviously, if you put this to open when X candles close after bands, it will, if you have it set to 1, it'll wait for 1 candle to close, 2 candles, 0, it'll just open immediately. As soon as it touches the band, it's going to open. So you can experiment with that. Open in, I have other EAs where I've done different variations on this one, but this particular expert advisor, this one here will open in, it's not what it sounds like. It's going to open an invert trade, basically. It's going to cross, and when so many of these candles have crossed the upper band, it will open a sell trade in the opposite direction. So it's not, and it won't open until it actually, I think it opens when it touches the band. So I'm not even 100%. I don't even remember. I have so many other expert advisors that I'm working with right now. I don't even remember 100% on this right now. But if you want to private message me on this one here, if you don't understand it, I'll do some testing and we'll go ahead and figure out how it opens. I know that when it crosses it, it will open a sell if it's the upper band. It's basically like an invert, basically. This is like inverting your trades here. And this one here opened by RSI. This one here, if you have your RSI period set to 14, if the price crosses up through the 70, no, this is opening down. If it crosses down through the 70, it'll open a sell. If it crosses up through the 30, it will open a buy trade. I've done a lot of work with all these. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. Have fun with it, experiment with it, enjoy it. All these things work perfectly in my head, but they don't always work very well in back tests and forward tests. So just use your imagination there. Change the RSI period. Believe me, I've done every variation you can imagine to try to find the Holy Grail. It's not the Holy Grail, but have fun with it. You can develop your own strategy. That's what this whole expert advisor is. It's about creating your own strategies that work for you, that you like. Just because I don't use it, don't you not use it because I don't use it. Because I'm by far not the greatest trader in the world. I know how to put these things together because I'm quite obsessed with creating these things. So here, open by stochastic, okay? This is where this expert advisor started way back 2017. I had a simple stochastic thing that I thought was the Holy Grail. When I saw the stochastic indicator, I thought I found the Holy Grail. I said, wow, if you just buy a trade here when it crosses this level and you close it on this level, you're going to have 100% profit. No, I was a newbie, and it doesn't work that way. So it's very good though. It's actually very good. I still use this in some of my other videos. I am still using. Absolutely, this is a good strategy, especially if you optimize it with open candles only. You can use this as long as you're opening and closing with stochastic. With make sure the shift is set to 1. If you set it to open immediately, it's not going to work on your backtest with open candles only. The trades have to open on a new candle and close on a new candle or the close of a candle. And then you can use open prices only, and you can optimize it very, very quickly, and you can just basically optimize it. Set these up here to different variations, and I provide this in another video, so I'm not going to show it to you now. There's a lot of material to cover. So it looks like you have these are the stochastic settings, the K, D, and the smoothing. You have the averaging method. You have the this is the this one here, midnight point line. This is one of the first things I thought of. I thought, oh wow, if you just have something in the middle, when it crosses the middle, it's going to profit, right? No, it doesn't work that way. You think it would. You really would think this would be profitable all the time, especially if you're sniping a couple pips. Yeah, it does work sometimes, but over long term, doesn't. But maybe you can develop something that works better than what I've tested. And if you look at this here, stochastic line cross down, it's just another variation of this midpoint line. If you set this midpoint, it's on 0 by default because it's not active. Put it on 50. You can put this anywhere you want, but usually 50 would be the midpoint. But another variation of that is I had added 2 of them. I added this line, 2 levels. You can literally have 3 levels that will open trades with this. You have the stochastic line down, set at 20. If it crosses the 20 down, it opens a sell. You could put this to 70. You can have that where it crosses down 70 and opens a sell. Just like the RSI that we were looking at before, you can put that to 30 so that it crosses up to 30 and it buys. This is the kind of thing that I'm using now, is something like this. I have to set these to true. Got to make sure they're set to true. Now this one here is open on stochastic cross. That's going to be crossing the K, crossing the D. And then very cool feature. If you look at these here, if the 5K period crosses the 3D period, it'll open a trade in that direction. And like I said, if it was 0 here, it'll open immediately. If it's 1, it'll wait for the candle to close. Hopefully you understand all that. Like I said, private message me if you have any more questions about it. Okay, here we go. We got through all the open trades features. Now we're into take profit. Take profit, this should be easy to go through, right? Do I have to explain this? No, I don't think so. Take profit, 50 pips, okay? I almost never use any of these default settings, to be honest with you. I used to a long time ago. Stop loss, 50. Trailing stop, obviously, my favorite right now is this. This is my favorite. 152 pip stop loss, start trail at 5. This is for sniping. That's what I use for sniping. Some of my newer strategies where we're using speed action, and speed we use 152, 5, and 4. That's what I use. You can even set the break even. You set this break even to let's say you hit 15 pips and you want to lock in 5. You can do that. You can make sure that once it hits 15, it moves the stop loss to 5, and make sure that you have a stop loss here, because you need the a stop loss figure in there for this break even to work, because it's actually going to move the stop loss to the break even. Okay, hopefully you understand that. It's important. Candle trailing stop settings. We have this one here where it's going to trail by candles. You know, same thing with the price. It's going to trail your candles, and then as it retraces this number, if it's going to trail 3 candles, it goes back 3 candles and it will close the trade. If you go to moving average, close buys, this here is when the price hits this moving average, it's going to close your buys. And of course, this is another one where I have a separate moving average for the buys, a separate for the sells. Why? Because you might want to close the buys on the low of the moving average, and so we have the low price here. Of course, you can change it if you want, but you might want to close the sells on the high price of the moving average, so it gives it a little bit more room before it closes, so you don't get in a fake a close too soon situation. And if you look at this one here, MA cross MA close trades, it's another closing trades, but when the moving average is crossing the moving average, and this is just one, it's not a separate, it's not 2 separate ones here, it's just one. So when the moving average got here 9, EMA crosses the 50, it will close. Now if you want to do a little bit differently, even the other way too, you could do reverse trades, or you could change this to 50, make this 9, so that it will close invertly, if you get my drift. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it if it don't make sense. Okay, where were we? All right, we're right here, it looks like. Okay, MA cross MA close trades. Moving average close pending. It's the same thing about closing the trades. This will, if you have pending orders open, this will close your pending if the price hits the moving average. Obviously, if you're using Bollinger Bands and you're above the 20 and you're using a regular 20 moving average Bollinger Band, and you can put this at 20, so when it crosses, it'll delete the pending if you don't want it to work anymore. You don't want the pending to be open anymore, I mean. This one's closed trade on Bollinger Band settings. Obviously, this is all the Bollinger Band settings here, the average, period, the deviations. Change the deviations to 2, 2.5, 2, 3 to get different adjustments there. And of course, this is more of the Bollinger Band's closing trades. This is obviously, it'll close when a candle finishes on 1, 0, it'll close automatically, so as soon as it touches the band. And here you have closed buys and sells on upper band, closed buys and sells on lower band. Basically, when it hits the upper or the lower band or crosses it, it's going to close all trades. This one here, close only sells on upper band, close only buys on lower band. Hopefully you understand that. Close only buys on upper band, close only sells on lower band. Obviously, you can use your imagination on why I have that. Close only sells on upper band would be, you have a sell trade going down and you're profiting, right? And you want a dynamic trailing stop loss. This is kind of like a dynamic trailing stop loss where the upper band's going to follow you, right? As you keep going down, the upper band's going to eventually come down and come down and come down. And eventually the trend will exhaust itself and it will bounce back and close itself on the upper Bollinger Band. And this way is more for sniping. When you close buys on the upper band, you know, maybe you want to snipe. As soon as it hits that upper band, boom, you want to close that trade right away. Bam! That's what that's for. And if you're going to use that, you might want to put this at a close immediately at 0. If you do that. 0. Okay. Hope you're still following me. Don't fall asleep now because this is quite a long video. Close all on cross of the middle band. Obviously, that would be the moving average, whatever the moving average is for that Bollinger setting. If it's 20, if it's a Bollinger band 20, it's going to close on that, crossing that 20 simple moving average. Okay. Close on recent high and low for number of candles. If you have this set to 10, for example, it will close on the low, the low of the 10 candles. If you have a buy order open, it's going to close on the lowest of the last 10 candles. This is another kind of dynamic way to close your trades, because obviously it'll continually moving up in an uptrend or down in a downtrend, and this will give you that. It's kind of like trailing away, but not quite. Hopefully you understand that one. Loss after X candles, another thing where this is only going to close when it's losing. So it's not going to trail. Okay, understand that. It's not going to trail. It'll only close if it's losing, and if it's losing by 3 candles here, it will close. Now if you set this up to open a new trade in a new direction, this is another experiment I had where, okay, it closes, okay, let's open another trade. So I'm automatically going to open up another trade in the other direction, hopefully thinking that, you know, I haven't experimented with this recently with a sniper kind of attitude. I might do that. I might actually test this out, do it using some kind of sniper ways with different time frames, and see if we can use this for sniping, because you know, if it opens up and closes and reopens, you might be able to work something out, an algorithm out, using just this to create a pretty good sniping strategy. I haven't done much with it, but I'm giving myself an idea here. Might even do that after this video. First, stochastic close trade settings. You have to set, this is set at default 100 and 0. Second one is set at 100 and 0. And if you put this down to like 80, set this to 20, it's going to close when the K crosses the buys will close on the 80 here, the sells will close on the 20. You can literally change this to be any 30, 70. You can change this to be top level closes buys. You can change this to what is it? Yeah, you could. You understand. So open. Let's say you're opening when it crosses the 30. You close on the 70. Open a sell on the crossing down to the 70, and then you close on the 30. This was for closing those trades that were opened on the previous stochastic open trades feature. This one here is a second one. You can have literally a couple different ones in here to close the trades, and you could have this one here is going to go with the initial open trade settings for the K, D, and slowing. This one here is going to have its own settings. The K period, D period, and final smoothing is all going to be unique to these levels, for the way the K is going to cross these levels. So I'm actually using this strategy in our other video where I ran all like 14 videos. I'm using this very extensively, and I've optimized it with open on new candle. Works very well. Of course, wait X candle, 0 is immediately, 1 opens after the candle finishes. Okay, top line closes. This is RSI. Same idea as the stochastic. Top line closes buys, bottom line closes sells. Hopefully you understand that. I'm going to start speeding this up here a little bit. It's starting to sound redundant. Top line closes sells, bottom line closes buys. Use your imagination there. Yeah, this one here is top line closes buys. So if you want to close the buys on top here, if you want to close the sells on top, you use this one. You have to use one or the other here, so you can't use both. And close trades after so many seconds. Very simple to understand. Why I have it in here, I don't know. At one time I thought maybe this would be good. You could try it. It's just simple, exactly how it sounds. It's open, whatever way it opens a trade after this many seconds. If you have this set to true, it's going to close the trades. So if you just want to set it up to be, you want to close all your trades at a certain time, whether they're in profit or loss, that will do it. Have fun with it. I left it in there. I'm not going to take it out if I put it in there. So I got filtering trades, open one trade per bar. This is very important. If you have this set to, if this is not set correctly, you're going to have big problems. If you have this set to false, it's going to open up as many trades as it will signal on one candlestick, and that would be a problem if you have a moving average crossover where it's kind of like moving around on top of the moving average, and you have a big stop loss, a short stop loss, and a short take profit or something. It will literally open and close the trades thousands of times and drain your account if you put this to false. That's why by default it's set to true, because it will stop that from happening. If the moving average crosses and you have it open immediately, it's going to just open up a gazillion trades and kill your account. So set it to true if you're using a moving average cross, in my opinion, unless you have a stop loss that's far away and a take profit that's far away. Please understand that. I don't want anybody writing me saying, hey, you just killed my account because it opened up 1,000 trades. Just keep it untrue to be safe. Now, sniping is a different story. You're going to set this to false if you're going to use the XPs per second. If you're not using moving average crosses and stuff, you can set this to false with the speed, because you might want to open up a bunch of trades and profit a bunch of times in one candlestick with the speed X pips per second strategy, the newer ones that I've been discussing. And now this one here, we're in the filter section, by the way. Did I say that? I might have said that already. But we're in the filter section. This is the last section, and then of course the day of week filter section, which is easy to talk about. This one here is allow trades only outside of the Bollinger Bands. Pretty cool filter. We're just going to open trades up if the price is outside of these Bollinger Band settings. Okay, do you understand that? It's going to filter. If it's inside the Bollinger Bands and this is set to true, it's not going to open up any trades. Use your imagination there. It means that price is volatile. If the price is outside the Bollinger Bands, it means it's volatile. This could be a really good filter for you. Do I use all these? Yeah, I've used them, but I'm only one person. I can't use all of them at one time. That's why I'm hoping somebody out there, you guys, will maybe find something that you can create out of this and make a fortune. This one here, allow trades only on the inside. So if it's outside the Bollinger Bands, it's not going to trade. So obviously it's going to open up a lot of trades. It'll allow a lot of trades. It's going to open when it's not volatile. So why is this good? Hey, this might be good if you want to make sure that the market's not moving that much. Maybe you want to put a trade in for something where it's got a high chance of ranging. This might be good if you set this up. I want to trade during a ranging market. Maybe this would be good for that. Trade during a ranging market. Those are ideas that I have in my head developing these. Now this other one here, this is awesome. Okay, this is great. This is probably one of my favorite filters here. First MA or second and third filter trades. It's 3 MAs. All have to be in a row. Think of it this way. Let's say you set this to true and you put it at, let's give you an example, 180, 190. Oh, what happened there? Sorry about that. I know this video is long, I'm so sorry, but this is a very, very, very big expert advisor, and I really needed to do this at some point, and glad I'm doing it now. Hopefully you don't fall asleep by now. We got let's say we had 180 period exponential, 190, 200. If the 200 is above the 190 and the 190 is above the 180, it's going to allow buy trades. If it's the opposite order, it's going to allow sell trades. Obviously, you have all these different variations. You can use smooth, which I kind of like smooth because it really gives you, it's in an uptrend. It's pretty much guaranteed to be an uptrend with that setting. 180, 190, 200. Here we go. It's one of my favorites. MA filter buys above, filter sells below. Like I said, this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the video. It goes with that very first feature up here where settings for MA cross and MA trend. This one here, you'll set that to go along with this. Maybe in the future I'll make it a little easier to figure out. But obviously, if I usually have a default at 2, so basically if the second candle is higher than the first and it's above the moving average that we just looked at, it's going to allow buy trades. And opposite for sells, if the second candlestick is below the first and it's below the moving average, it'll allow sells. And of course, if you change that number to 20, it's going to wait for 20 candles to be above 20 candles open a buy, below 20 candles to open a sell. It's kind of like in my head thinking, okay, well, I want to make sure that it's really going down and not just bouncing around up and down. Make sure it's in a trend. So I'm kind of trying to force the trend. Yeah, it works sometimes. To experiment with it. Allow trades X picks above and then block. This is another bunch of features I added a while ago. Hopefully you can understand. It's hard to understand, but allow trades so many pips above, and then it's going to block. So in the moving average settings are all right here below it. If you set this to true, you set this to the, right now it's set to 0. Right here, you could change that, of course, to let's say 10 pips. It's going to block. It's going to allow trades up to 10 pips above or below this. Above for the buy, and if you put this to 10, it's going to be allowing 10 pips above the 50 smooth moving average. It will allow buys. After it gets above 10 pips, gets too far away from the moving average, it's going to block. So it won't trade, because we don't want to trade too far away from the moving average in a trend, because we know that the trend might start reversing. That was my idea of this feature, and it does work very well if you experiment with it. Okay, hopefully you understand that. Like I said, I'll say it again. In a downtrend or an uptrend, if the price moves too far away from the moving average, there's a good chance it's going to start reversing back to the moving average. So you don't want to open up too many trades that are too far from the moving average. Okay, do you understand? Hopefully you do. This one here, this feature will block trades up to that. So if I had this at the 10 here, it's going to block up to 10 and then allow. This is kind of like counter what I said before. This is where it will open trades up after 10 pips, because now we're thinking, okay, well, maybe the market is really moving fast, and so it got away from the moving average, and we want to maybe this would be good for sniping on certain moving averages where it's moving really quickly. Now we got some momentum here. But the opposite also could be true. If it gets too far away, it's going to reverse. So use your imagination, use your trading skills to develop your own strategies with these features here. Like I said, this one will block and then allow after this number of pips over and above the moving average. Okay. This one here is another one. It's just another one. Don't remember. Okay, yeah. This is exactly the same as the thing I just described. This one will feature a block up to and then allow. It's just another one. So you can have two moving averages where you're doing the same thing with two different moving averages. It's pretty sophisticated, pretty complex. I haven't used it lately, but it does work very well, especially if you want to do like let's say you want to do a 9 EMA and you only want to block you want to block 5 pips above the 9 EMA, and the other one you're blocking 10 pips above the 50 EMA. So you can block above that one, and you also have to block above this one. So it'll only open up trades when the momentum is moving above the 9 EMA and the 50 EMA at that distance. And then in my head, I'm thinking, okay, wow, it's going to continue. That's the whole idea of that. Okay. And this one here is filter sells above and buys below. This is basically going to allow only sell using the same feature, the same moving average setting in the beginning of this inputs in the beginning is going to allow sells only above and allow buys below the moving average, basically for a ranging market. Think of it that way, just inverted, allowing the trades to be opposite instead of going with the trend. You're kind of going against, it's going against the trend basically. So in these block settings, it's just everything we just went over for the buy above, sell below. This is now sells above, buys below, and the same thing, blocking X up to and then allowing. Same thing here, except this one here is a little bit different. This one here is moving average above a certain distance in pips. It's going to turn invert trades on. Get it? Do you understand? This actually, if the price gets too far away from the moving average, if you put this to like, okay, it got to 50 pips above the 50 smooth. Oh, it's going to put invert on because the chances of it reverting back to the chances of this opening a trade up and moving back to the moving average, and I might do some more experimenting with this after this video too. If you are 50 pips away from the 50 smooth or the 200 smooth moving average, and you only allow trades beyond that, and invert is on, it means that perhaps you can open up an invert trade going back towards the moving average sells. For instance, let's say you are opening buys above and sells below, and you have this on. It's going to invert that once it gets to that point above or below the moving average. I know it's confusing sometimes. If you don't understand it, private message me, but it's a very sophisticated feature and it does work. Just because I don't provide setting files for all these doesn't mean they don't work. They do work. I just don't use every strategy. I've tested them, they work, and I move on to another strategy. Okay, here's another one. MA above pips. The moving average above a certain distance and the invert will be off. And it's the same idea we were talking about before, that we're, okay, now we're moving above a certain distance, so it must be moving in a really strong way. We're going to just go ahead and allow the trades to move with the trend. Use your imagination. It does work. This one here, candle trend filter. We're almost done now. Candle trend filter is if so many of these, you have every time frame in here all the way up to a month. So if you were to have a 1 minute, a 5 minute, a 15, a 30, a 1, a 4, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, and of course you can enable as many of these as you want. You can have a time frame enabled here. You can have, you want to have 3 M1 candles open, and you want to have 2 5-minute candles open, and then you want to have 3 15-minute candles, and 2 30, all going in the same direction, and 1 1-hour candle and 1 4-hour candle. So you know, oh wow, this is really going in that direction. I have not done a lot with this. Perhaps I should. Perhaps I should work with this a little bit. I really haven't had much time to use it. I put it in here a long time ago. And it does work. You just have to get the right amount of candles for each one of these and to try to force it to go in the direction the market is going in. It's very sophisticated. Maybe somebody will make a fortune with one of these features here. Okay, awesome oscillator. If it's above, the this level, it will allow buys. If it's below this level, it will allow sells. I don't use it much. Maybe you like it. You can use it. Block trades by RSI. It's going to block above this level. It's going to, I'm sorry, this one's going to allow above this level and block below it. This one, 30, it's going to allow below the 30. So it's going to block between 30 and 70 if you have it set to there. If you set it to 40 and 60, it's going to block between 40 and 60 and allow only when the market is moving above or below those lines here. This one, filter trades by RSI. This one here is going to, you're going to need to use this one, this block trades with this filter. You need to set both of these to true. So set that to true. And then this one here, you're going to allow only buys above the 50 or only sells below the 50. Of course, you could put that to allow buys below the 70. So if you were to do this 70, 30, no, truly, you don't need to do that. You really don't need to do that. You really just need to keep it at default 50-50 because typically you want to open up buy trades above the 50, sell trades below the 50. And unless you're trying to look for a market that is overbought or oversold. If you're using overbought or oversold, you can do this. You can change allow buys above. I'm sorry, hold on a second. I'm confusing myself here. No, I'm sorry, just leave it at 50-50. You can play with it, but like I said, it has to be used with this block trades feature. So if you have it set to 70, allow above, block below, you're going to have 70 and 30 here, then you're going to have 50-50 here. So once it gets above 70, it'll allow buys. If it gets below the 30, allow sells. You get the idea. Okay, we're almost done here. We're going to wrap this up. Filter trades, we just did that. Stochastic filter, this one here will, above the top line, it's going to allow only sells. So if you set this to 70, this to 30, it's going to allow sell trades because we're looking at a overbought market above 70, and we're going to look at an oversold market. It'll allow, it's going to allow only buys below here. So it's already sold, below buys under the 30. And the no trades area, again, you can use it with this. You can set this to 70, 30, 70, 30. So you have above, overbought above 70 will allow sells under 30, oversold, allow buys, and now it's blocking all trades right here. You have to set this up with it. You have to use this. So between the 30 and the 70 levels, it will block. And this, the settings for this one, for these stochastic settings, are actually all the way up here in the open trade section. Sorry that doesn't make sense, but that's where the settings are. The settings are over here. Open trades by stochastic. It uses these settings, okay? Hopefully this helps you figure that out. It uses these stochastic settings. All right, we're almost done. This one here, look back X candles. It's going to look back right now. Let's say you were to look back 100 candles. Put looking back 100 candles, and it says X% of up candles filter only buys. So if you had, this doesn't really happen, but if you had, let's just make it more realistic, 60 candles. Let's say you had 60 candles, right? Out of 100, that would be 60%. So it would be 60 would here be 60% of 100 would be, if you do the math, it would be 60 candles. So if 60 candles out of the last 100 are all buys or bulls, it's going to open buy. It's going to allow buys. If 60 candles are bear, there's 60% here of 100. 60% or 60 candles are bears, it will allow sells. and by default has to be set to 0, otherwise it will filter. So 0 disables it, if you understand. And of course, here we go. We're going to wrap this up. Day of the week filter. We have day of the week filter is set by default to off. Don't use it much. If you want to use it, you can go ahead and use it and set the start time and the end time according to your time zone and your broker and all that. You have to set it uniquely to your broker. And of course, you can set days on and off if you don't want to trade on certain days, and you can turn those days off. And you can even close trade at the stop time too. If you set that to true, you can even close trade when the stop time happens. So, well, that's it. That's the overview. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please private message me. I am here to help you with this expert advisor all the way through. I've done so much with it, and all I want to do is make sure that my customers get the most out of it. And you have a wonderful day.